Welcome back to Campfire Stories. If you're a fan of the strange and unusual, please like and subscribe. Without further ado, here's today's story. So I was a federal building inspector, and my job was to inspect old abandoned buildings from the 60s. Most of them were abandoned mental asylums, being that so many closed down due to new laws coming in place in the 60s. And when I was inspecting this one asylum, the local legends were that it was so haunted that no one would go near it, no one would develop there, which was just stories to me. I've heard it all. So this was an old asylum, and this is one where they packed up and left. They didn't even really pack up, they just one day left. No one really knows why they closed their doors. So I enter the front door, and first thing I see is it was a church mental hospital. So it had a bunch of religious memorabilia in there. So I start doing mold samples and checking the foundation, everything like that. And I every time I walk around, I notice either the crosses are upside down or they're on the ground. And now there has been a lot of people that have done pranks and rituals in this building, but I never really thought of it. So I'm walking down this long, dark hallway. As I'm walking down this long, dark hallway, I hear a squeak. That's not uncommon. It could have been a floorboard or anything like that, but something tells me to turn around. So I do. So right in the path where I was walking was an old wooden hospital wheelchair. On it was two sixes. Wheelchair 66. And throughout the whole day, I was inspecting the hospital, looking for lopsided frames, signs of the building collapsing, doing mold tests, the normal. This was going to be a several day project due to the size of the hospital. And so as I'm walking around, I see a lot of old bottles, a lot of old medicine, a lot of stuff that I'm making notes of. And as I'm walking around, I notice wheelchair 66, wheelchair 66, wheelchair 66. Every floor, every time I turn around, the squeaks stop, and there's wheelchair 66. So as the time goes on, I lose track of time because of the lack of windows in the hallways. And and before I know it, it's 3 a.m. I should have called it quits a long time ago. So I'm about to call it quits. And I turn around, I start heading back, and I see wheelchair 66. And one other thing that struck me odd was every single door, everywhere, even doors that automatically lock, were all wide open. And I thought that was weird. I didn't really think much of it. So I'm walking through this hallway, and it's on a ward where people were terminally ill. It was commonly used for tuberculosis, and those kind of patients, terminally ill patients with contagious diseases. So I'm making my way down this very, very, very long hallway, and something catches my eye, causes me to turn towards this one room. And it was almost like there was a light in there. But once I turned, it was just pitch black. It was pitch black. There was nothing. So I turn, and I turn around. There's wheelchair 66 following me throughout the entire hospital. So I go and keep walking, just ignoring it, thinking if I ignore it enough, if I don't react to it, it'll go away. So I do that, and it gets angry. Before I know it, every single door slams across the entire hospital grounds, echoing throughout the area. And the whole building starts to shake. And I quickly run and kick and kick and kick the stairs door. And I can't get it open. Eventually, it opens. After I've been balled up, terrified for what feels like hours. It has only been 30 minutes. As every door for that past 30 minutes, except for the door I wanted to go through, simultaneously slammed, 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 slammed. Aggressively. Then they all open up. And I realize this isn't right. The building stopped shaking. The building no longer feels like it's gonna collapse. Cracks had opened up in the floor that were previously there were gone. And something's off. It feels clean, like different. So I go upstairs. I go back upstairs. It's weird. It's like all the dust, the mold, all that's gone. And I hear people. Sounds like a hospital. So I open up the stairway door, and I see nurses in 60s nurses gowns rushing up and down the hallway. Candy stripers, doctors. When I walk around, it's like I'm not even there. No one reacts to me, but I can see them. And then suddenly something hits me, something dark. It's always been lurking in the corners, but it let me see it for the first time. It's this darkness with two red eyes. And it rushes me. And I hit the ground hard. Next thing you know, I'm outside. I wake up outside. Another inspector that was there to help me inspect the property found me laying on the ground. All my samples were gone. and all I had in my hand was a hat. It looked brand new. It was a candy striper's hat. It was weird. It's like something was telling me I'm here and I'm not going. Get out of my hospital. Something was keeping those departed souls in that hospital working like they've never left. Something very dark. Something very evil. It's keeping those patients suffering. It's keeping those hospital staff working for all of eternity. So the other building inspector tells me, hey, there's a flooded basement, we gotta pump it out to inspect it. So, confused about this, what happened, and not really wanting to talk about it, I say, okay, and I help him run the pump. Suddenly the pump jams. So we take off the hose. There's an arm from a human remains sticking out of the hose, sticking out of the pump. They jammed the pump. The basement led to the morgue. The morgue was full of bodies. Immediately thinking that we found a serial killer's dumping ground, we call the sheriff's department. They inspect and they find that the morgue is just piles of human remains. They didn't just leave the medicine, the files, the hospital beds, the clocks on the walls, the gowns in the changing room, the surgical instruments in its surgical theater. They left the bodies as well. The bodies no one would miss. The people with no families. And with the building with no legitimate owner. And any past owner being long departed. No one to ask any questions. The question still remains. What happened at that asylum that caused them to leave in such a hurry? Was it the darkness that lurks in the shadows? Was it what attacked me? Did it get other people as well? Some questions are not meant for the living, but we still ask. Thank you for listening. If you like these kind of stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Have a good evening.